Welcome in, everyone. So glad to have you here. I personally had a day off yesterday, so I'm feeling refreshed and good to go. But welcome in, everybody, to another IT Leadership Lab live stream. Today, we're going to be talking about public speaking, communicating with confidence on kind of a variety of different avenues. So whether that's one-on-ones or speaking to a group, we're going to talk about it all today, hopefully fit whatever we can into an hour. I know public speaking is a pretty broad topic, but I have brought an expert here who is an expert on all things public speaking and kind of learning the ropes on that. So Danny, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your journey kind of in IT and public speaking and sales and things like that. And then tell us a little bit about App Meetup as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for the introduction, Brittany. It's a pleasure to meet everybody. I will have to tell you that I'm a curious person, first of all. And curiosity is something that got me in trouble as I was growing up as a kid. There's two of us. I'm identical twin brother. He is the what I call the forward artistic person. I'm the one that likes to be in the back room tinkering things and breaking things down. And from a young age of building my first radio from scratch and breaking things in the house and trying to put it back together, I realized engineering was my path. And that led me to get a BS in engineering, bachelor's degree in engineering, a master's in computer science, and ultimately my first job as a network engineer. So I began my career in the world of IT. I love IT, but at that time, the mentorship and leadership was not really well known 32 years ago. And so I look a lot younger than what I am. But back in those days, I learned that this was fun. And there was times where we had separate rooms, separate buildings, and I would configure all the rooms in the building so that we can play this game called well, I'm not going to tell you the game, but there's a couple of computer games we used to play with each other during our breaks, all the IT nerds. And it was really a fun and exciting opportunity. From there, I became an IT manager. And after becoming an IT manager, I realized this isn't quite the same type of job anymore. I'm having to communicate a lot more. I'm having to play politics a lot more. And there was a time where my hand got slapped. You are no longer allowed to do X, Y, Z. You're no longer allowed to do troubleshooting. You're no longer allowed to do installs. Your job is now to go coach and mentor your team so that they can do those things better. And at that moment, I realized there's a different skill set that was needed. And from there, I started my own value-added reseller business, which, as you guys know today, that if you purchase products to help your data center, you're probably purchasing through a distributor or through a value-added reseller. And after having that VAR, having the office, what I call 3 offices spread throughout the United States, growing my business to really good multiples, I sold it. And then I went to work for a cloud computing company, Microsoft's largest cloud computing company. And from there, I ran their practice for a few years. And then I worked for a company called Parallels. And if you ever had to learn how to virtualize Windows on a MacBook, you probably know this company. And so it was my job to run that operation globally. And after that, I realized that, hey, what else can I do? I love engineering. I love sales. I love IT. And it came back to coaching. And that's where we're at today. Learning to take complex topics and simplify them so that non-technical people can understand what you're saying and what they should be doing based upon what you said. And that's where App Meetup comes on. So App Meetup is a coaching company in the IT services space, IT technical space. We've been in this space for 6 years now. This is my second company. And in fact, we were able to help grow revenue so much for partners that Microsoft named us the Supplier of the Year award winner in 2024, beating out Accenture and Capgemini. So my small team was able to show revenue back because of the way we did our work. And because of that, we're here today working with awesome people, awesome leaders like yourself. Thank you, Brittany, for allowing me to be a part of it. I am going to ask you guys to please ask questions during the presentation. We want to make this interactive. We want to make this fun. And if you stay tuned, Ninja One is giving away several copies of our books and our journals just for you to make life easier for you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you being on. I've gotten a little bit better at public speaking in my time doing these leadership lab streams, but I am far from an expert. So really, really appreciate you having you on, and really appreciate you being willing to jump on. And if y'all are interested in learning more about coaching and sales and training and stuff like that, definitely I dropped a link for App Meetup in the chat. So if you're interested, definitely go look into that. And yes, we will be giving away a couple of copies of the public speaking books that they have. It's called Talk It Up. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a giveaway for that after the stream. And we're going to be giving it away in the IT Leadership Lab. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over back to Danny. Danny, if you want to go ahead and share your screen and walk us through your presentation.
Excellent. It looks like we had some people to say hi, which is fantastic. Great.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Trinidad, Nashville, Tennessee, Austin, Milwaukee. I love this. This is an amazing group that's spread out. That is fantastic.
Yes. Right. Yeah. That's awesome.
All right. This is what we want. We want interactive participation. Now, remember, the more you participate and the more you interact, the better. And Brittany, if someone asks a question, please stop me.
Absolutely.
We make it as interactive as possible. Really excited about it. All right. You guys can see my screen. That'd be fantastic.
Yep. Looking good.
All right. Let's get started. Leading impactful one-on-ones. Now, before we get started, I want everyone to understand that what you do in the work that you have today is fantastic. It is not an easy job. One, you have to understand technology, but two, you have to understand behavior. So you may have gone to school, you may have learned technology, you may have learned IT, you may have learned a lot about data center operations, cloud computing, but one thing that you didn't learn in school is how to deal with human behavior, how to deal with the psychology of a person, how to deal with their mindset. And all these things are going to be very important. But the good news is that every person in your room, every person at your company, every person at your home, we're all creatures of habits. And we all want to do what we call the path of least resistance. So if you want to improve your communication, you have to create what I call the right habitual pattern. And when you create the right habitual pattern, you can master it. Now, I don't know if anyone ever heard of the rule of 18. If you have, please raise your hand. If you heard about this rule, put in a comment, yes, I heard about this rule. But the great thing about it is that by mastering 18 minutes a day, just 18 minutes a day on any particular topic, just choose one topic. And a lot of times in our lives, we want to master everything that we need to change. We want to improve everything in our lives, but we don't realize that if we just do one thing at a time, just 18 minutes a day, we will be able to be more impactful. We will have mastery over that particular topic or that particular practice, be more efficient than over 90% of people around the world. Just 18 minutes a day. And you're saying, Danny, that doesn't make sense to me. What do you mean 18 minutes a day? Pick up a piano, just practice piano 18 minutes a day and see where you stand 1 year from now. When it comes to dealing with people, pick up a book to learn the psychology of a person and just read it. Read 10 pages, 18 minutes worth of pages every day for a year and see where you stand. When it comes to public speaking, and this is where I myself had to learn how to speak in public. It takes 18 minutes a day to master mindset, visualization. And when you do those things and you put it all together, you're going to realize that confidence has been built. And that's really what this is about today. It's about leading and having great impact, but being able to speak in confidence. And confidence comes from doing the right activity over and over and over again. But you don't have to do it for hours at a time. You only have to do it in micro fractions of learning, these micro instances of 18 minutes at a time throughout a day. You may do 1 minute at a time, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, but at the end of the day, you do 18 minutes. And after 1 year, go to that next conference, go to that next event amongst all the other IT leaders. You're going to realize that you have confidence and you don't even know why. And that confidence came from being able to repeat a good habit. So I'm going to encourage everybody today, after we get done, just practice 18 minutes a day on one thing you want to master. And for me, as a network engineer, I wanted to get my CCNA. I want to get my CCNP, my CCIE. All these things are important. But in order to get that Cisco certification, I had to do one thing at a time. And that one thing was I need to read a book. I need to set up a lab. And I just practice every single day. And you know, the funny thing about it, once I started getting my certifications, I got promoted into management. And then I was told I wasn't allowed to do those things anymore. But that's another story. When it comes to leading impactful one-on-ones and leading great team meetings, You got to have a good habitual pattern that you can use every single day. And if you use it every day and you do it the right way, you're going to be having a lot of confidence built in yourself. And that confidence will come from having a standard that you know works. And when something works, it will impact not only yourself, but all your employees, so that when they get into leadership, they'll do the exact same thing. So I want to encourage you guys, when you think about leading one-on-one meetings, there's 5 things you need to do. But before you do those 5 things, I want you to treat these one-on-one meetings as a holiday, as a religion, as something that's sacred that you do not miss. You cannot get in the habit of setting one-on-one meetings and then all of a sudden missing them. It's just not something you can do. It's going to be very important that you consistently meet with every employee. And when you meet with your employees, they do not have to be 1 hour, 2 hour, 3, 4 hour meetings. The more you do it, the more you find it, the more you realize that those meetings only have to be a short amount of time, because they're impactful, because they're very specific. And when you do those things, you're going to realize that, wow, I'm having great effective one-on-one meetings. And by having great effective one-on-one meetings, I have a great employee that wants to stay with us. And the key thing, and you guys have all heard this before with the CEO and the CFO, the CEO says, well, what happens if we train these employees and they leave? And the CFO goes, well, what happens if we don't train them and they stay? So the CFO is looking at it from a long-term perspective, is it's going to cost our company more money not to raise up and train up good people. And if they get raised up and trained them, they decide to go somewhere else, or they get promoted somewhere else, then they're going to be a valuable asset to their organization. But for you today, in order to develop speaking with confidence, you got to have what I call a habitual pattern that does not break. And that is having one-on-one meetings on a consistent basis that you do not miss. And here's 5 things you need to do in your one-on-one meetings. And this is what happens. When you have consistency, it builds trust. When you have consistency, it builds trust. It deepens your relationship. When you don't have consistency, what will happen technically is that when you speak to your employee, they may think that you're judging them, that you're berating them, and that you're always critical of them. How do I know that? Because I used to be a technical person. Every time a manager wanted to meet with me or call me into his or her office, I knew something was wrong or something was going to have to happen, because they never called me into their office. They never want to speak with me. And that's because we didn't have that trust. We didn't have that bond. So I want to encourage all of you today that when you're going to have meetings with your team, you got to make sure that those meetings with the team is going to be able to develop that trust, is going to develop that relationship. You do not want trust to be developed because of just your title. You want trust to be developed because you feel like your employee is going to want to go into battle with you. And that's really what it's all about. So number 1 thing you need to understand is that by having a great one-on-one meeting, you're going to develop that trust. You're going to deepen that relationship. And what we're going to do is we're going to make available to the community today our templates. So we're going to have some templates that you can use if you don't have, in order to make sure that every meeting you have is effective and every team meeting you have is going to produce the results that you want. Number 2 is the one-on-one meetings are all about managing performance. And the last thing you want to do is take your employee and put them on a PIP, because you didn't set the expectations, you didn't develop them, you didn't manage your performance ahead of time. And what this is about is you're going to take that opportunity to hear from them how they're doing, what the report looks like, how the day is going. This is their opportunity to articulate to you what they're doing. Now, what is going to be important in the future is teaching them how to communicate up. And we have another book coming out this spring. It's really about communicating up. So what you're doing in your meetings is not only are you looking at their performance, how are they doing, but you're going to coach them on how to communicate up to you, giving you what you need, giving the reports that you need, the stats that you need, so that you can do your job more effectively. But that comes from you managing the day-to-day work. Now, for non-sales people, if you're dealing with developers, we track that typically through Jira. If you're dealing with sales reps or market people, you may use Asana. There may be different tools you use from a project management standpoint in order to manage not only the project, but the people that are doing those specific tasks. You want to use your one-on-one meetings as that opportunity to grade and determine how the performance of your employees doing. Number 3 is development. Typically, when we hire people, they may not be 100% ready to go out of the box, even employees that's been on your team for a while. But when you have one-on-one meetings, you can understand what is their long-term goals. Do they want to be in your position? Do they want to be a manager one day? Do they want to be a director or VP one day? Or are they happy where they're at? I can't tell you how many times I try to promote certain people into certain roles. And every time I try to promote certain people, you know what they said? I don't want that job. I'm happy where I'm at. I have a routine. I make good money. I go home at night. I'm done. You go home at night, you're still working. And so not everybody wants to be in a position of leadership, but they still want to be developed. They still want to improve on their communication skills. And I will tell you that for me as a leader, if I communicate expectations to my team and they don't understand it, then what's going to happen is their performance won't be well. And then I won't look good with my leadership team because I was not able to get my team to hit the goals. Communication isn't just speaking. Are we speaking in a way that makes sense to the person who's hearing it? This is communication. It's like, do I hear you? Yes, I heard you, but do I understand what you said? Do I understand the expectations? And sometimes that comes from development. And development isn't just about getting promoted. Development can be, how can I improve as a communicator? So development can be for your employee, but it can also be for yourself. And when you understand what they want to be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, then you know exactly how to develop them. Early problem detection. Another reason why you want one-on-one is you don't want to wait until the end of the quarter or the end of the fiscal year to realize we're not going to hit our deadlines. You do not want to wait. If you order a data center refresh and you have to replace your router, you have to replace your switches in a data center, and you have a lot of people on the back end, maybe they're using CAD CAM and they have high-end systems and they need that extra push of that bandwidth, and you're doing an install and you don't realize that, hey, we ordered equipment, but Ingram Micro or Tech Data didn't have the switches that we wanted, or we didn't have the devices that we needed. And so what that does, it pushes your timeline out. But if you're not having one-on-ones consistent with your team, you may not understand these detections of errors that can happen. So a great thing about having one-on-ones is having these early detections. Now, all of you guys are saying, look, Danny, I have one-on-ones every week. It's not a big deal. I have one-on-ones all the time. We've never had any issue. Fantastic. That's awesome. One-on-ones is not just about discovering issues and your employee feeling like they're being judged. It's that together, that employee feels confident by presenting to you issues that they are feeling like they're helping to solve the problem and they feel like they're part of the team, not necessarily that their performance is going down. So we want to use one-on-one as a way to build up the team, not necessarily as a way to make them feel as if they're not doing a great job. And the last thing that we want to do is we understand one thing. If you talk to any HR people, if you look at any stats on LinkedIn, if you look at anything out there, what do they say the number one reason why people leave companies? We think it's work. We think it's money. But no, the number one reason why people leave is because of their manager. And so we want to make sure that we are conducting one-on-ones in a way that makes people feel heard, that's authentic, that feels like they're engaged, and as well, it will help them to stay with the organization long-term. And there's a stat out there that to hire a new employee, they may not be able to add value or contribute to you financially to an organization for almost a year. So it's best to keep your current employees happy, keep them currently employed with you, than to go somewhere else. And the number one reason why they're leaving is because of you. So before I move on to the next slide, I just want to make sure that if you have any questions, please raise your hand, let Brittany know. She'll stop me from speaking. We'll get engaged. We'll talk about it. But for me, what I found over the years as a leader is that by having consistent one-on-ones has been the most important thing. Now, leading global sales is different. Leading global teams is different languages, different holidays, all those things. But what I've found is that having consistent one-on-ones, no matter what, has been the reason why we've been able to be successful. Now, we talked about the rule of 18 earlier. We talked about mastery. In order to have mastery leading one-on-ones, to keep your employee happy, to keep them engaged, you got to structure it in a way that it's a win-win situation. When I say win-win, these people are looking forward to having one-on-ones with you. They're looking forward to sitting down with you. You're looking forward to sitting down with them because you're going to gain insights, not only on how they're doing, but on how your whole team is doing and ultimately how your company will be doing. So you want to make sure you look at progress. How are we doing? Are there any issues? Do you feel like there's going to be something that comes up that's going to keep you from completing the project on time? What does that look like? And that's called the obstacles. You as a leader, your job is to get rid of as many obstacles as possible for your employees, give them as many tools as they need, within your budget, within your power, so that they can be successful, which ultimately leads you to be successful and, of course, your whole organization. And then lastly, one-on-one's also a good opportunity for what? A feedback loop. Now, if you're not taking one-on-one seriously, you don't know how your team can improve. You don't know how you can improve. You don't know how your company's going to be able to improve. And that person that leaves, they blame you as a manager. However, it's those underlying things that crept up. And those things combined with your leadership was the reason why people may have left. So we want to use one-on-ones as a great opportunity to structure the meeting, to structure the outcome, to structure the energy. And if you put all this together, this is what's going to cause your employees to want to stay, to want to add value, to want to contribute, and ultimately to step up to be a team leader. And then once one of these days, maybe in your position once you get promoted. Before I go into the blueprint, are there any questions? The urgency, the need. Has anybody ever practiced the rule of 18? Anyone in anything in their life? It doesn't have to be IT, but has anyone ever practiced the rule of 18 in their life? Please let Brittany know. Raise your hand. I'd like to hear what you practice. For me, there's been a couple of things that I've done to practice. One of them has been breathing and learning how to control my breath, learning how to use that in any situation. And when I did this thing called the Wim Hof method, have anyone ever heard of the Wim Hof? There is this thing where you do ice cold plunge baths every day. And the way you control your breathing is the way you're able to assimilate quickly in cold, freezing temperature waters. And not only to assimilate, but also to meditate and relax. And then you can stay in the water for a long period of time. And I think that for me, I did that for 3 months, 4 months. And then after a while, I was able to control my breathing. I was able to control my temperature, and I was able to relax quickly so that when I get in water that's ice cold, it's not something I have to worry about. So anyone in this room who would like to share who has done the rule of 18, or what have you done every day to better yourself? Anybody would like to jump in and say anything? Brittany, is there anyone?
Yeah. Dan actually mentioned that he's reading at least a chapter a night in different books on leadership, cybersecurity, things like that. And, I think that consistent ability to learn and focus on those specific skills is really, really important. Just like a little bit every day, like you mentioned, it goes a long way. I personally have I started, this isn't business related at all, but I started rock climbing last year. And so doing a little bit every day or a little bit every week is something that will help immensely down the road. So definitely very, very cool. And then Denise actually mentioned going to use this, the rule of 18, to learn how to do SharePoint server migrations. So there is a whole spectrum of ways that you can use that rule of 18. We also have martial arts, systems thinking, and economics. And then Jacob mentioned breathing is always good. And focusing on that in the mornings. And it's something that I probably need to work on as well. Yes, Ben, Climbers Unite. I'm not very good at it, but we're working on it. I did actually have a question from the chat that Lori asked. And they said, I would be curious on any tips working with neurodivergent managers. So, for example, those with autism that may not see value in one-on-ones. Is there a different way to position those? Is there a different way to demonstrate the value of one-on-ones?
Excellent question. I love that. And one of the things that we love to do when we sit down and coach teams is have everybody take an assessment. And the assessment isn't just a personality assessment. It's not just a DISC assessment. This assessment helps us understand each individual. And there's this thing out there called the love languages. What I give to my wife or what she gives to me, it may not be the same thing. So, for example, my wife likes words of affirmation, and I give her these words of affirmation. You don't have to tell me I'm awesome. You don't have to tell me great. I don't really care about that. That's not what brings me value and love. But for her, if you just say those things every day, she's walking on cloud nine and she can conquer anything in her life. And so what I say about assessments, when I say about the personality test, when we put them all together, it helps us to really understand the person that we're trying to make better. And a person feels safe when they feel that their needs are being met. They're much more open and receptive to working with you. And as a leader, we don't always have time to get certified, to get trained on how to deal with personalities, to get trained on how to deal with people with certain needs. But I implore you as a leader to spend 18 minutes a day, if possible, to learn about each and every employee on your team. What are their needs? What are some of their challenges that they may have from a physical perspective, a mental perspective, even a religious perspective, whatever all those things may be. If you put them all together and you build the right plan in place, what you will find out over time is that they will endear themselves to you. They'll be much more willing to meet with you, and you can get creative. I'll give you a good example. One of the meetings I had with one of my network engineers who was studying for his CCIE. What was important to him wasn't the one-on-one meetings. It was actually our bonding that we had playing this game called StarCraft back in the day. And so we would play StarCraft. We would set up the rooms, and as we're talking, we're actually having our one-on-ones. He's giving me his challenges, why he's frustrated, why this is the third time taking the examination he hasn't been able to pass, how that's affected his personality at work, why he's been moody at work, why he's been snappy with the people around him, the different team members, why he feels like he can't finish his projects on time because he's tired, staying up late, studying for the CCIE exam. When we put all that together, he felt non-threatened because we were playing StarCraft. And I kept telling him, hey, stop using the cheat codes, go by memorization to build everything out. And once we got through that, and he finally was able to realize that his not passing this exam affected everybody around him, that they felt like they're walking on eggshells, he started being more open about it. And then we start looking at different ways. How are you studying for your examination? What tools have you looked at? What have you been doing? And we start changing things up a little bit here and there. He eventually was able to pass the examination. He's walking on cloud 9. Of course, in my team, every time you pass a cert, you got a bump in pay raise and at the end of the year. And so he was really excited about that bump in pay raise as well. And it just worked out well. So I don't know if I specifically answered your question, but I would have to tell you that your role is very complex. And as a leader, it's very difficult to just manage projects. When you have to manage personalities, you have to manage growth. There's a lot of things you have to do on a day in and day out basis. But I will tell you, getting an assessment done for every employee, it is not something that you should say no to. It's something that you should definitely do at one time or another, because that's going to help you coach them better. That's going to help you understand them better. It's going to help you lead with authenticity and empathy a little bit better in the future. So that would be my way to address that question.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, just meeting people where they're at. That's huge. I had a couple of questions about the timing of one-on-ones, both the length, so how long a one-on-one should be, and then also how often they should be, whether they're weekly, monthly, bi-monthly. How often should you have one-on-ones?
Great question. It really comes down to the need. So always the very first one-on-one you have is something that you would do with your whole team by stating, listen, we're going to set a standard. And the standard is that I'm going to be meeting with you guys on a frequently, regular basis. And that's the first thing you need to understand. I'm going to meet with you frequently and regularly. And if we can't meet on a specific day, I will reschedule it, but we will meet frequently. And I think what we don't understand is that the timing of it doesn't have to be set for an hour and a half, 2 hours. What needs to be done is the very first time you meet. That very first time may be an hour and a half, 2 hours, might even be 3 hours. And the reason why the very first time is the most important thing, you're creating that foundation. You're creating that trust. And that's going to be so important. That's going to be so needed. And when you create that, you're going to wind up seeing over time, because you're going to master. We talk about the rule of 18. The more one-on-ones you do with that specific individual on the team, the more you're going to master your communication. You're going to master the flow of it. And that time's going to get shorter and shorter and shorter to where you're not meeting weekly anymore. You're meeting monthly. And sometimes you might even be meeting quarterly. So the very first meeting is always going to be the longest. That's going to be the time to develop that foundation, develop that trust. And as you develop that, you're going to start realizing that you're going to get it down to about an hour. And then that hour might get down to 15 minutes because of the person you're meeting with. I know for me, as a technical person, when I was growing up technically, I don't need to feel good around you. I just need you to look at my checklist. Does it make sense? Give me the diagram, what needs to be done. Here's my progress report, and I'm on my way. That was 15 minutes. I was happy with my leader. They thought I didn't like them, but at the end of the day, I was excited. But the fact that my leader trusted me, that I only needed 15 minutes of his time to then go and roll out this data center refresh project that I had to do. Then I had other employees who needed an hour of my time, because the 45 minutes is that emotional, touchy feeling stuff that needed to get done ahead of time, so that the person felt comfortable with and drop their guard with me. And then they're able to open up some challenges and roadblocks. And the reason why they were 45 minutes in before they open up challenge roadblocks, they grew up in their past that every time they opened up about a challenge, they got beat down, that they weren't competent. So for them, they needed more time to realize that this is a safe space, that I'm not going to be in a position where I'm going to be judged negatively. And they just needed some time to kind of wind down a little bit before they got into the real meats of the one-on-one. So I don't know if that really addressed your question, but I will tell you that the very first meetings are always going to be about an hour and a half. The very first time you do it, they have to be done on a regular cadence, weekly if possible. And then depending on the personality and who that individual is and their reliability and the development they need, it may switch to monthly or even quarterly. But never, ever treat that time with that employee that's not special. That's not like, religious. It's got to be something that you are letting them know, I value this time and I'm not going to push it away. And if I have to reschedule it, it's going to be done ASAP. We're going to do it ASAP. It may be later that day, maybe later that week, but we're not going to keep rescheduling the times that we meet together. So that's going to be very important. Mm-hmm. Brittany, any other questions?
No, just some comments. Kelly mentioned putting decisions that need to be made that don't require context into written communication prior, so that they can respond in text. That kind of frees up a lot more time during the actual meeting to discuss things that need discussion and context. Yes. So you're not spending a lot of time on things that don't necessarily need to be talked about during a meeting. They can just be discussed over Teams, Slack, email, things like that. And
absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. It is very important that you're communicating with your team as much as possible in a way that is productive. Mm-hmm. And if the person's only waiting to meet with you once a week to talk about challenges, and that's the only time they're talking about it, that once a week may have delayed your project to where everybody's impacted, depending on how many people are touching it. So a good example is when we're installing systems, there has to be some downtime. Sometimes that's done after hours because we don't want to impact the people working each day. Other times we may need to get approval because maybe it's in a data center in a specific area where it's co-load, or we need a security guard there, or whatever that may be. So all these things have impact. And if we wait until that one-on-one to happen, we're delaying other people. For example, we may have the delivery of the data center equipment come into the data center. And so someone has to be there to unpack it. Someone has to be there to rack and stack it. Someone has to be there to cable it and then label the cables. And then all those things have to happen. And if we wait until the last minute, we're losing out. So yes, absolutely. Use Microsoft Teams, use Slack, whatever communication that happens. But when it's done electronically, you now have it as ability for putting it into your file, that file that you can see how that individual is doing. So yes, absolutely. It doesn't have to just wait during the one-on-ones, but communicate as often as possible. Hey, I see where you do. Even as a leader, if you have an employee that you see is working hard and their love language is words of affirmation, that quick Slack meeting or that quick Microsoft Teams or text message can say, I see what you're doing. I see that you're working hard. Hey, keep up the good work. If you need anything from me, let me know. I'm here for you. Mm-hmm. Guess what that just did? That just gave them ammunition. That gave them fuel. They're so excited. They just had 3 Red Bulls. They're ready to go rock and roll. Just go rock the world. So yes, absolutely. If the Slack can help you, leverage it, and it can actually shorten your time, your one-on-one, from an hour to maybe 20 minutes because you've actually did everything you needed to do before that. So absolutely. What I will say is the reason why this template's up here, this blueprint, is that you want to have the ability to articulate long-term. You want to have the ability to document long-term. And all these things, if you go back and review your notes, what you'll see patterns. And one of the things I like about being a technical person, I love patterns. And a lot of times people say, well, what are you talking about? Patterns are important to me. When you do the rule of 18, you create a pattern. You create a habitual practice. We're all creatures of habit. And when you do the right thing over and over again, you're able to see progress, but you're able to see a certain pattern. When I wake up in the morning, what's the first thing I normally do? How do I do it? Why do I do it this way? When you start seeing certain patterns, you can tweak things a little bit here and there to make yourself more efficient, to make yourself more productive, much more valuable. And for you as a leader, you want to have a blueprint that you can use to recognize patterns, to be able to recognize things to make yourself and your team member better. And the first thing I would say is talk about feelings. How am I feeling today? And on this blueprint, you don't have to use this. You can use your own blueprint. I always ask, hey, how am I feeling today? What's going on? What's my mood like? Because if I'm in a bad mood, maybe that one-on-one meeting is not going to go too well. But if I'm in a good mood, maybe it will go well. And one of the things we do from a psychological perspective to make the meetings better, we start off with wins. We like to start off by celebrating wins. I don't care if it's a micro win or if it's a huge win. We like to celebrate wins. And one of the wins that I like to say is that, hey, I got my 10,000 steps in. I took my dog out for a walk. And if you heard about this admiral who spoke at University of Texas, he says, no matter what, when you first thing you do, you get up in the morning, make your bed. Now, I was in the military myself, and I did 8 years in the Army. And I would tell you, making the bed was something of pride. If you made the bed the right way, and you do it when you come home from a hard day at work, at least you know your bed's made. You can have a worst day of your life, but one thing you can say is I accomplished one thing. And the first thing I accomplished is when I got up, I made my bed. So I want to encourage you guys that the reason why we have the celebrating a win very important is that by celebrating the win together, that win can change the brain pattern to a positive wavelength to help propel your meetings. So if you start off the one-on-ones with, man, you didn't do good this week, or, hey, you didn't hit these goals this week, or, hey, what's the challenge and roadblock? What you're going to find out is that meeting energy is going to drop. The person is going to squirm in their seat and they're going to want to get out the room. So always start off your meetings with a win. I don't care how big it is or how small it is. One of the wins could be my daughter placed first overall at our gymnastics competition this past weekend. So my daughter actually went up to Fort Worth, Texas, was part of a gymnastics competition. And all I have to say is all that money I'm spending for her to get gymnastics lessons, it turned out to be she placed first in her gymnastics, and she placed third overall amongst all the other kids in her age group that came into Fort Worth for the competition. So that little win allowed my mental capability that yesterday when I had to work, Brittany asked me, hey, what did you do during President's Day? And I said I had to work. And that propelled me to have a great energy and a great meeting with my client out of the UK. So I would tell you, when you have one-on-one meetings, you want to start off with a win. Then you want to get straight into how are you feeling? Mm-hmm. And if you can accomplish those two things, that's going to create these great endorphins to help you have a great one-on-one meeting. I hope that helps everybody real quick. So keep the blueprint, continue to keep using it, and that's going to help you. Mm-hmm. Any questions?
No.
Okay, great. Now, what did we just do before we get into team meetings? What did we just do? We created a pattern. That pattern created mastery. That mastery developed confidence. And when you have confidence, now you're speaking better. You're standing up taller. You have more air coming into your body. And that's what we're talking about. It's the air that you're breathing. When you have great air coming into your body, you're going to be much more confident in the way you speak. And that's really going to be important. And I want to encourage you guys that. I want to encourage you that when you master the one-on-ones, you're going to realize that you're going to speak with a much more positive authority without raising your voice. You're going to speak with so much more confidence to your leadership, maybe to your CFO, who's saying, hey, look, we got 3 quotes. That's mandatory in order to approve one thing. And now that this project is moving forward, how are we doing on budget? How are we doing on time? How are we doing XYZ? You're going to be speaking with confidence because you know what's happening. You know the obstacles coming up. You know the good things, the bad things. You're going to be speaking with much more confidence, which means you're going to breathe better. And when you breathe better and you breathe fuller, you come across non-squeaky. And when I say non-squeaky, I want you to watch some YouTube videos, go to conferences, and listen to the first couple of words out of a person's mouth. Did it come across that they had a lot of energy, a lot of air, or did it come across squeaky? And it came across squeaky, they were nervous. They were hunched over. They couldn't get enough air into their lungs. They didn't have their diaphragm expanded. So that's really why I'm telling you today that by mastering these little things, writing them down, it's going to allow you to think about that. I want to say that there are a couple of things you need to think about. There's 3 pitfalls that you need to think about when it comes to having meetings. If you don't have structure, and structure is what we talked about, that blueprint, the things that you need to go over. If you don't have structure, people don't know what to expect when they come meet with you. And that's why it's very important to have a structure. I don't care what you think your structure is. Every employee has to understand this is the structure. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And if they Slack, Teams message you along the way to accomplish some of those little things, but you're still going to hit those goals, that's going to be so important. And the second thing you want to do is you don't want to focus too much on the problems. You want to focus on outcomes, possible solutions. By focusing too much on the problems, the person internalizes as themselves that they are the problem, that they're not a good team member, that they can't do their job effective. So we don't want to focus too much on the problems. Yes, we do need to understand the problems, but we don't want to focus too much on them. And the last thing you want to do is you don't want to be in a situation where you don't follow up. And give a good example. If you tell your kid, if you don't do X, Y, Z, I'm taking away your iPad. Well, by threatening them so many times and never taking away the iPad, what are they going to do?
They're going to ignore that and just assume that's never going to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really the key for your employees. It's the same thing. When you tell your employee, I'm going to give you every tool that you need to be better. I'm going to give you the learning tools so you can be more competent. I'm going to give you the physical tools so you can troubleshoot your job better, or the SaaS-based tools so that you can load everything up into a project, whatever it may be to help them get to where they need to be. If you don't follow up as a leader, they're in their minds going to internalize, this is how it's going to be going forward, so that when things fail, I'm going to be blamed. I better start looking for a job now. And the number one reason, if you talk to any HR professional, why people leave, it's because of the manager, not because of the tools, not because of the system, not because of the environment. So I want to encourage all of you guys, please, I implore you, do not do these 3 things. That's why you cannot be in a situation where you can't miss your time. You got to keep your time. It's very important. A couple more things, but how are we doing on time? And Brittany, are we still doing well?
We got about 15 minutes left. I did actually have a question that came in regarding one-on-ones. Thomas asked, what if I do a daily stand-up? Most of the facts are covered there, and if needed, I have follow-up, but only if the project/person needs it. Do I still need regular one-on-ones in this case?
Absolutely. So daily meetings, are you talking about daily meetings with the whole team? Like each day will come in the morning, or daily meetings with your employee?
I'm assuming that they mean daily meetings with the entire team,
yep,
rather than daily one-on-ones.
Absolutely. So daily meetings with the entire team is very important. Sometimes when we come in the room, we want to get our ducks in a row. We want to understand who's missing, who's sick, who's here, who's not here. So those daily meetings are important. This is what we're going to get into next, the team meetings. But what's even more important is that one-on-ones, because not everybody in the room may be comfortable to express how they're feeling in the daily meeting. Not everybody in the room may feel comfortable saying, you know what, I didn't pass the CCIE. I'm not feeling well, so I don't feel like giving. These things don't necessarily come out in a group meeting. Not everybody's comfortable to talk about things in a group meeting. But the daily meetings are important to give people a sense of duty, a sense of structure, the hoorah moment. When I was in the military, we're living and sleeping in the field. We have tents that go up. When it rains, that's how I always took a shower, and all these things was crazy. And one of the things that we had to do, no matter it was rain or shine, we got up and our leader came out and gave us our pep talk. And these aren't considered pep talks to people who aren't in the military. They're considered, oh my gosh, why are they speaking to you like that? But for us, it really gave us that pep talk we needed to move each day. What do we need to work on? What are the obstacles? What do we have to do in order to accomplish our goals for the day? So these things are very important. So yes, absolutely. When it comes to your daily pep talk, your daily structured team meetings, absolutely do it. But the one-on-ones are still very important, so that some individuals who need it are going to get it. And those who don't need it, that one-on-one is very short then. It doesn't have to be long.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Perfect.
Here's the team meetings. If you want to look at how should I structure my team meetings, what should it look like, It is similar to the one-on-ones, but as a group as a whole. And this is a great opportunity, not only for you to give direction, even if it's a quick 5-minute or 10-minute team meeting to get people going, but it's also a way to see who your leaders in that room. Mm-hmm. Who are the people in the room that like to solve problems? Who are the people in the room that are getting things done? And this is your way to see how your team interacts. Do we have too many people that are type this and not enough people that are type that? How are they interacting together? So this is your time as a leader to see the interaction of all your employees. How are they doing together? Can I have someone be a team lead, or do I need to step in before an issue arises? So this is your time to make sure that you as a whole get everybody together and see how they work together. And it's going to be the same thing. Hey, let's start off with some wins. Always start off with a win. In team meetings is good. Maybe you need to celebrate one person on your team for a couple minutes. And the rest of the team members like, oh my gosh, Sally, that's awesome. We didn't know you did that. You figured out. Oh my gosh, that was a bug. Whatever it may be, it gets everybody wanting to work together. And that's really the goal, getting them work together. And so follow a standard, follow a practice, and make it habitual. Your team meetings, make it habitual. Document this so you can see the progress. And what you're going to see over a period of time, you're going to see your team develop and get better. We actually had this thing come out about a week and a half ago where our child had to take this this national scholastic testing where they had to see how do they do compared to other kids in their age group for certain topics around the United States. And the good thing about it is you get to see their progress. How do they do? Are they getting better? What are they learning? What are they doing? And then you can use that to kind of put in patterns of training and development so they can continue to grow every single day for the next year. And actually, my kids look forward to this. I don't know why, but they just look forward to seeing how do they do compared to kids their own age group. So going forward, yes, daily stand-ups are very important, but when you have your meeting, document them. Even if you can't do it, have your chief of staff or have your assistant or have someone on your team document it so that you can see the progress of your team meetings. Mm-hmm. We're getting towards the end. I want to make sure I continue to leave it open. But one thing I will say, and I want you guys to really understand this, is that communication isn't just words. Who would like to guess what percentage of your communication is actually words compared to the rest when it comes to body language and tones? Who would like to guess what percentage is the words?
I would say it's a pretty small amount. I don't know about an exact amount, but definitely the words are probably not the least important, but very small portion.
Absolutely. And we're gonna show you. I thought I had a percentage, but what it really comes down to is it is 7%. I thought I had another fact that showed you 7%. Now, over a period of time, what you're going to realize is that the words are important. How you structure the words to be more precise is even more important, but tone and body language is more important than anything else. And give a good example, my kid doing gymnastics. If she comes to me and she's done doing her flow routine, I have my arms crossed and I got my eyes looking down like this and I got my back turned to her. And I was like, you did a great job, babe.
Yeah.
That's not going to be effective at all. I said the right words, but my tone wasn't good. The tone was kind of negative. My body language is curled up. And I'm going to encourage you guys, when you have meetings with your team members, open up your body a little bit more. Keep your hands out. Out means I'm non-threatening. Arms crossed means I'm preparing and bracing myself for something bad. Mm-hmm. Or I'm sternly mad at you. And if you just relax a little bit at your desk while you're standing up, while you're talking, if you have to, put a cup of coffee in your hand and drink it, but put it down. And that way you can move, because sometimes we don't know what to do with ourselves. What do we do with our arms? What do we do with our legs when we're talking? It's just sitting there. So the easiest thing to do is let me just cross them. But crossing them closes you off. So 7% of what you say is important, but your tone, how you say it, how loud, was it aggressive, and your body language. Did you smile? Were your eyes open? Were you looking at the person? Was your body turned? All these things can make your one-on-one meetings and your team meetings much more impactful. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you, if you focus on the nonverbal portion of communication, If you focus on the non-verbal portion of the communication, it's much more valuable than the verbal portion of communication. It's much more valuable. And I know that's hard to believe, but it's much more valuable. And if you do that, you're going to have success. Now, I'm going to give you guys some action items, because I'm not just telling you guys today some things that can make your life a little bit easier as a leader. I want to give you some action items. I want you to standardize your one-on-one meetings to where they know what to expect every single time, to the point where whenever I open my mouth, my clients or even my children say, yes, yes, I know what you're going to say. They always say that. Yes, yes, I know what you're going to say. Let's start with some good news. Okay, here's my good news. I want to be the first to share. They know it because it is a standardized agenda and they use it every single time. In your meetings, I want you to focus on the wins first. Start with wins. Start with wins. I know it's hard. Maybe that budget came through. Maybe that challenge is about to happen, or maybe something negative is going to go. Whatever it may, start off with the wins first. Let's get positive energy going so that everybody together will want to troubleshoot and solve the problem in a unique way. And then lastly, we talked about this. 7% is your words, but your tone, your body language is very important. When you have something very important to say and you lean in, guess what they do? They lean in too. Mm-hmm. And when you start off soft in your tone, they're going to listen much more attentively. What do you mean? And if you are inviting with your body language, they're going to lean in more with you as well. So I want to encourage you guys, do that. And I think that you're going to find this to be so much more rewarding for you. Make your life easy. I used to always tell my kids, make my job easy as your parent. Just make it easy. And why? Because I want to make my life as your parent easy for you as well. And these things work out when we all have a pattern. We all have a practice we put into place. Like when we sit down as a family, we sit down eating dinner together no matter what. And when we sit down, we talk about, hey, what good thing happened to you today? Before we say, oh, Johnny, he did bad. He messed up my artwork. Before we get into any negative, what one good thing happened to you today? And then from there, we're able to move forward. So I hope this helps you guys out. I know we only had an hour today. This is really a topic that can go on for a long, long time. But I just want to show you an opportunity and share that with you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. There were a couple of questions that I think are related. So first, Nate asked, what does this say about Slack, email, text messages as communication channels when a lot of the tone and body language, especially body language, is completely gone? And then also, how does that play into remote work and communication? So we're talking over Circle, we're talking over video chat. How does my body language and tone still play into the way that I communicate?
Excellent questions. What I would say, you're absolutely right. An email can come across in a way where people think, wow, I can't believe he or she said that. When in reality, that's not the intent. So the problem when you communicate over Slack, email, Teams, text message, the intent is not always understood. Mm-hmm. It's just not always understood. They can't see your facial expression. They can't see your body language. I write we had just had Valentine's Day, and my kids wrote me these Valentine cards, right? And the great thing about it is I'm reading them like, okay, that's great. But the intent, my daughter goes, did you see how many lipstick smooches I gave you? Did you see that? Oh, I didn't count them, but why didn't you count them, Dad? That's how old you are. Whoa, I did not know that. The intent was there. Did you also see that I wrote it in another language as well? Mm-hmm. You know, I used to live overseas for a long period of time. I learned a couple of languages, and I was like, wow, that's right. And not only did she write it in another language, she did it in the right way. The font, the styling, the curvature of the words, that intent was missing. And so I would tell you, when you write an email or you write a text message or you do Slack or Teams, the intent might be missing. So it's very important to do a follow-up. Mm-hmm. And that follow-up could be a call. And I would tell you, from a sales perspective, I send lots of emails, but when I send a video message, I get that hit rate 99% of the time. When I send an email, I may only get 20 to 30%, if that. But a video message, who is this Danny? What does he want? Mm-hmm. They'll actually click on it and watch it. So I want to encourage you, if you send a text message, just do a follow-up, because they may not understand the intent.
Yeah. Yeah, Kelly made a great point with text communication. I have a rule that I don't correct or provide feedback in writing. Text is only for information or praise, but those bigger things that require a lot of context and body language and tone should be done either video or in person rather than over text. So
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And thank you for that feedback. We as leaders get busy, and we send lots of emails, lots of text messages. I mean, for me, I still have 1,400 open emails in my inbox, and I hate that. I'm an organized person. But this last year, we rolled out a new product. We started rolling out new industries, and I'm getting bombarded speaking here, speaking there. And one of the things I have to always remind myself is that as a leader, it's very important to go back to just having a good pattern, a good routine, and communicating effectively, trusting your people. And my inbox started getting lower and lower because my team started doing parts that they always could do. I just didn't allow them to do it. So yeah, absolutely. Think about the intent, think about organization. And at the end of the day, a pattern. And if you have a good pattern and it's habitual, it works. And our team, if you ask any member of the team, they say, hey, how many times do you start off a meeting with negativity? They're going to say never. We always start off with every meeting with a win. It's always with a win. I don't care how small it is, how big it is. It's always a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also dropping your LinkedIn here so people can connect with you. And then I'll go ahead and follow up after this meeting with all of the links, all the relevant links. And then we will be giving away a couple of those copies of Talk It Up for anybody that is interested in getting a book that has all of this and a ton of other information about public speaking. But yeah, any last parting words before we end this stream?
Absolutely. For me to you is take advantage of this community. And why do I say that? Because at times you as a leader, you may not have a peer at your organization. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But within a community, you have a lot of peers. Some people who have gone through struggles and overcome them that you're starting to hit. Other times you've gone through struggles and overcome, and now you're a mentor to someone else in that group. So take advantage of it. You can grow so much faster when you leverage people around you than if you went at it alone. There's no way I could have my second business. There's no way I could have left the world of engineering. There's no way I could have left this world that I was in without a peer group. So please take advantage of this peer group. Please take advantage of the people here. Get to know them. And once you realize that outside of work, people are kind of cool. They're not always a nerd. They might be pretty cool. They might be into rock climbing. And for me, it's about that Australian rappelling, right? Going down and just rappelling, running face down the mountain. I've done that. And I would say the first time I did that, I thought I was going to die. But there's this thing called resistance. There's this thing called friction. And from being a technical person myself, that's what kept me safe because I understood that. And so for you, I'm going to encourage you, please take advantage of the community. Please take advantage of the people around you. And what you realize is that having these people around you might be the best thing for you because you always have a group where you can feel safe.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, that's something we're striving for in the lab is just to get people, all of the IT leaders together, learn from each other because everybody has something that they can provide and everybody's looking for something too, especially as IT leaders who might have been thrust into a management position without any training or support or anything like that. That peer group is really, really important in growing that skill set. So, and as Dan says, I think these are great parting words. Never forget, no matter how good you are, you're always climbing higher than the people who stayed home. So,
love that, Dan. Thank you. Love that.
That is great.
Love that.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And then, after this, I'll be posting a recap of everything that we talked about in this stream, as well as a contest for those books. So keep an eye out for that. And then in a couple of weeks, we'll be chatting about women in IT and how we can kind of help foster that growth for women in IT. So definitely RSVP for that. And I will see y'all in the next one. So take care. Thanks, Danny. Bye, y'all.